No need to add this to the making of Cohnirri Space 2. I was just going over Cohnirri Space 2, the finished movie, and making some corrections, and they're very minor, so post it. Also, yeah, we're going to go on to 3. As you know, that's book 1, 1, 2, and 3. I keep implying that there's going to be more, but I don't want to get ahead of myself and say, like, oh, there's going to be more, and then you do more. I do realize that the talk about this third act villain in this movie does seem like he's a third act villain that shows up at the last minute to do harm, but maybe he's got a presence in the third act somewhere, and he's not really the third act villain. He's part of the other story. I think he's the king guy from the other book 2. Yeah, some of the stuff that would happen later on in the series, if it continues, kind of can't. Just because, well, it was generational. This is because it's kind of related to the making of book 2, or movie 3 in a sense. This is a making of that. When movie 3, book 1. In book 2. It's more the same. It's another season of the show. These were done in segments similar to early Netflix, so they were like, even though it was technically not really at Netflix, it's a coincidence that they were kind of like, oh, there's like 13 chapters and there's 12 chapters here, and then there's more, and they kind of line up to be like a 90-minute movie each book. For each piece of each book, what technically 3 movies here, a trilogy. The later ones do different things that you may not necessarily want to do. There's in book 2 they have Beth Cassins and the Discovery in book 2, not movie 2, not movie 3, book 2. They have that weird Dargrai detonates his planet thing. We're kind of discussing that too, and it's like, why would he be allowed to do anything like that? Even if the local laws pod zaps him, but why would he be allowed to blow up the nukes on the planet? It's too much like Battlefield Earth. Them using a nuke on a planet. Planet blows up. If you get to book 2, I wouldn't do it as a planet. Have him say he blows up his palace or his ship or something. Also, some of the other stuff that would be later on in the series doesn't make sense either. Like the Earth fleet rebuilds using pieces from the Kaleen in the original thing. Because the Kaleen was way bigger. The ship was like 25 miles long. They had all kind of pieces of it. And they took all the pieces and they built other ships out of it. Rebuilt the Earth fleet. And also, book 2 takes place 10 years after book 1. Book 2 and book 1, you see. So I don't want to do that this time around. So where would they be only a year into the future instead of 10 years into the future? They wouldn't have that yet. Bad guys wouldn't have that yet either. So they would have less power and sway in the story. They would have less power and sway. They wouldn't have that yet. I think it is best to just go and finish the trilogy here, then do the Vanguards trilogy, and then come back and do more of this as continuation. As long as this doesn't take a month to do each movie. But this last one took exactly a month. This is being posted nearly a month, a little over a month to the day of the other one, because there were 2 weeks of hiatus. You don't want to do that necessarily. You don't want to necessarily introduce the Majestic and the Harlequin, which comes in book 2, and then have the Harlequin ship destroy the Discovery with Beth Cassins on it and cause the other stuff to happen, causing the long trial of Jarjit, the guy, to happen on the planet. A space trial might sound good on paper, but it's probably going to be boring. We don't want to see that. But if he doesn't finish her off, if in fact she escapes, then that's different. Changes the timeline, makes things different. And then he doesn't get charged because he didn't. Yeah, so you can easily change that. The yeah, this is my stuff, so I can change it a little. Yeah. If everything was moved up, then it would be kind of like what you did with Prospectors being moved up. It was originally 10 years later after Clark Crew and the Vanguards, and they moved it up so that it was actually only 2 years later, and then it changed the entire dynamic of the story, so that, which isn't necessarily a good thing, and we may not use that part, but it was worth a try. Yeah, I as for this second movie, it does seem to work. It's funny, it's good, it's dramedy, it's drama with a few jokes here and there, space opera. It works as a nod to stuff like Deep Space Nine and Babylon 5, and a little bit of DS9. Yeah, Deep Space Nine and Babylon 5 together, sort of a hybrid, kind of thing. A little bit of. I was going to say it's a little bit of the old BSG, but not really. Not really. It's its own thing, and usually I'm making these comparisons to say, like, okay, this is how to market something that isn't marketed. It's just for free to watch, and you don't need to do that. There's just watch it based on how cool it is. You have a prolific story where the idea is to finish a trilogy literally in a couple months, and have a trilogy done for this story series that normally with a cast and crew of hundreds doing an animated thing would take weeks, take months and months and a year, and the year comes out, the movie comes out a year later. No, here it's just we film it, done, trilogy, here it is. This next act will be out by Valentine's Day, I would imagine, Act 3. Hopefully before that. That'd be kind of fun. But yeah, but not having anything to do with Valentine's Day. I know it's Martin Luther King Day. So yeah, today. So we have. So we have. Yeah, the Cohnirri Space story following into the events. Those other events that are story ending later on don't need to happen the way they did. Just to have them happen, you can easily re-engineer it. I think the character of the Cassenses in this story are clearly supposed to be older commanders and captains on a ship, possibly in their mid-40s instead of in their mid-30s, and they're playing them to sort of the slightly older commander on the ship. He does have an arc. His character is doing things, commanding and whatnot. It's not that the way the voice is played in the story. Cassens is clearly no nonsense. Does it by the book. Doesn't laugh. Doesn't have humor much. His jokes are very subtle, and it's Beth that's kind of off the handle, but a little more matured. The Beth character. Arlene, the character, doesn't get much to do, but that's because he wanted to give DeVries more to do. Also, yeah, they keep hinting at the Jennifer character and not using it. The character use her in the third movie, not the third book, the third movie. Use her as Jennifer Stevens and have her go to the planet to meet up with the pirates, because then they keep hinting at this character and then not having her do anything. It's like, have her be with the pirates. That's fine. Do that. You have the president is. I joked at the end of the connection thing. I'm going over the whole thing. I joked at the end that that's Kyung-Hee Kim. That's our TMS leader parody lady clone. It probably isn't. It's just that it's not that Cillian Space cloned her and made a younger version of her. It's probably one of her sycophants playing a version of her, younger. Yeah, so it's not her. It's not her. Anyway, so, and they're not necessarily in the TMS universe. The Dotal are apparently following a version of COL. And of course, anybody that doesn't know what COL is will just assume I'm making a reference to The 100, that series on Netflix with the COL cult on that one too. Of course, the 100 is done by an ex-Jung Swan COL person. One of the producer directors of it is somebody from the cult. It is that's why it's called that. They went right past the censors and put the show out. It's one of theirs. Ours isn't. The Marshall Sportiest version is considerably parody, and this is not that either. There's parodies of that, and it's not. You've got a. Yeah, there's other things you could prevent by having, if you go on to book 2, and you probably will, just because of the way the Cat Planet story is probably 90 more minutes. The way this is, there's basically 5 50-minute chapters left of book 1, and it'll probably, the Earth War is probably the last 2, is probably going to be in a 4th movie here. And it just so happens that the end of the Kayleen in that, the beginning of the 2nd book, is immediate in that story. And some other things happen. And the launch of the Discovery and the trip to the other planet is in that story. The first half of book 2, that is movies 5 and 6. Book 2, 5 and 6. And we probably should go into book 2, but not 3. Just 2, just because tell the whole Cassian saga, and you can change a lot of it because if Margit's crew tries to do what they're doing and is stopped before they can actually do those things, like 10 years earlier, then they're not as powerful, and the Earth fleet can actually fight them. And they won't end up with a bad guy, terrorist, suicide bomber blowing up a planet, which is problematic, to say the least. And could be offensive if it was a human that did that. It's a creature, but still, I don't know if you want to go there, that kind of a story arc. So probably what he does, he blows up his palace and his ship, and he tries to escape, and that's probably how that story ends. Is the main bad guy stops him. And also, that also gives you an opportunity to have it end kind of more like the original Planetcom from back in the day, and have it be that we don't meet the return of dementia, the dimensions, that they don't show up because they're too much like the Mochlins from. They're too much like those guys from the Orville. If they show up, they're going to be like, "Oh, you're ripping off the Orville." Yes, in this case, we weren't, but in this case, they will totally think that's what we're doing with these T-Rex. Even though they're supposed to be T-Rex people, like Velociraptor things. The other ones are supposed to be bugs. We can't do this alien race. We can't do the Tahdemis. So there's a way around that. What you can do is you can say, like, okay, at the end, the Darkrai are about to signal them with the destruction of the planet in book 5 or whatever. Movie 5. And then when they signal them, doesn't go through. Signal didn't reach anybody. So I was going over the story premise while doing this, thinking about this story. Discussed some of this with Mark's cards. That the later stories after book novel 2, the whole thing is pretty repetitive, and I don't necessarily want to get to the parts that have to be so rewritten that they suck. I don't want to get to that part. So if I have it end with them just about to meet the main baddie, and the main baddie's not there, and we're just dealing with these sort of lesser bully baddies, it's better that way, because if the main baddie showed up, he'd destroy everybody. Cassins would all die, Slayton would die, everybody would die. Go to the edge of this other star system, and how would they do that anyway? So, they get in another ship in that other series, and Cassins is flying on another ship, the Washington, and he goes in there and he fights the Vanguard. It's a little too heavy-handed. Also, the Tahdemis were supposed to be this race of machoistic jock bully asshole guys, and played by Velociraptor people, and they were gonna they're all males, and the females were exiled, and the gag was later on in the series of books, and you can read the series of books. That's fine. They're a different timeline kind of. You can read the series of books. It's already changed a little bit in this timeline, and you can like the series of books. Fine, that's fine. But yeah, this goes off in a slightly different direction, just because there are certain alien races that would be extremely problematic to do. And we don't necessarily want an all oligarchical bad guy, a feudalistic group behaving like kind of ancient Japan. This just no, and then doing crossed with ancient Islam or something. You don't want to do that. No, don't do that. Even if it was supposed to be an allegory, it doesn't work. So don't do that. So yeah, I think don't go to these machoistic guys. They're you could have something like they just have the Dargrai try to signal them and they just don't get through. Maybe they're gone. Maybe they killed themselves. Maybe they're already gone. Yeah. So yeah, you don't need to foreshadow this other group necessarily and show them. Save it for a spectacular war movie thing. But no, we're not going to do that either. No, we can't use them. We can use the Letamok and the Dargrai and the Litkra because they're sort of space bully autocrat guys, computer driven, kind of like the Borg and pre-Borg. Because our version of the Borg was the Corrodans, the Nintendosis virus that made everybody zombies and made them look lizard-like. That's our version of the Borg. Whereas Star Trek Next Generation, when it came on late, when Next Generation started, their version of the Borg was more like, the robotic zombies, they get zapped and then they turn into this, they get assimilated. Ours were similar in that they get assimilated, but they become more like zombies, so it's a little different. But yeah, the puberty virus. But yeah, this one, we want to get on to the Starcrackers thing. But I think in order to do the full saga of Cohnirri Space, you're going to need to do 4 of these before we do the Starcrackers. I think we're going to do 4 of them. So just to get the whole Dargrai thing in there, because you did set up this new villain, and yeah, let's finish that and then do the other thing. Yeah, so it's all fun. It's cool so far. So yeah, then finish it with book 2. Because the other stuff is totally different. There's get to book 6. It's Donald Benton's son. It's in the distant future, and he fights the Tahdemis Lord Drex, named after Doug Drexler, from Deep Space Nine. And there was an alien guy, the guy who played Drex on the show that just died, or from last year, so I reference him. And it's and Lord Drex, but they do time travel-y, timey-wimey, David Lynchy stuff. He just died. Doing David Lynchy weird stuff in space and time, and it's all mutated. And it makes no sense. That whole book makes no sense at all. You've got book 7, where they go to the alien realm, and they fight these Nephilim type alien creature things. Some of these ideas are kind of neat, as rejiggered as something else, but not Cohnirri Space. And I don't think they would do it justice by doing them. It would be like doing the Apocrypha from Doom, which they kind of do on TV, but we don't have a cast. So, no, let's just do the stuff that's good. There was a chapter. There was a 4th book, but it was also an alternate book. I believe 4th and 5th, where they go. There's a crew of female heroes, including Captain Benton. Arlene Benton becomes a captain and serves on a pole ship, does some adventures. That's probably not going to happen in this universe, just because this is early in their universe, and it's doesn't make sense. She's basically Janeway. She goes on this mission and does all these things and heroically beats the bad guys again. The Tahdemis come back. The Letamok come back, and she's got to fight them. Just like, why would she do that? It doesn't make sense. Also, there's this other Tahdemis story where they go and there's a Tahdemis story where she helps to bring the brood of the females back to fight the males that are misogynistic, and essentially destroys the Tahdemis brood completely, obliterates it. How would we film that? How would we do that? That sounds like a one-story idea that was pulled out into this, and it's a good novel. It just doesn't make sense as an episode of television. It just doesn't. Yeah, it's like, okay, how do you adapt? You can't adapt that. For one thing, there aren't enough alien action figures. You know how many action figures, Starflex Playmates figures, I would need to get to pull that off? No, I'm not going to do that. There'd be hundreds more, all done up like the aliens. How we don't know. Yeah, we can paint their faces to make them look like Orion lizard people or something, or something else, or cat people or whatever. But we really don't have the technology to paint them up and make them look like, anything other than there. So yeah, this is sort of, that going on beyond book 2 is just extremely problematic. And if you set this universe earlier, it doesn't have to be. Also, the Vanguard stuff set in the other. But no, the Cohnirri Space isn't done yet. We set it up for a sequel. Clearly, there needs to be at least another movie. And yeah, you need to go on part 3. At least part 3. But if you've got kind of the same space war going on with, then they fight at Earth, and then in the next one, they go to the Darkrai planet, they fight there and they blow it up. That makes no sense. But I wrote it when I was like, the original comic book was written when I was a teenager and then in my young 20s. And then the later stuff is later. And it's like, you don't need to do that, nor should you do that. Kamikaze space alien suicide bombers. Probably not the coolest thing to do. Probably not want to do that. Just the suggestion that Yunsel, it used to be called Yunsel, Orange Claw's character went to that ship in this story to make it a one-way trip. He was intended to take himself out. That's how you would do that. And since you already did that, and he comes back, so he's fine, and he's depressed a little bit because he came back, he succeeded. But the overall story in part 2 here is that their victory against the incredible odds wasn't Gaia or warrior spirit or faith necessarily. It was that the bad guys were killing themselves. So they already had that kind of in there in the DNA, and you don't need to do that, because you don't need to, beyond the lizard people, to the other guys do it too. Yeah, it's like, why are they doing that just because they're from Pine Hill? That makes sense. So Cohnirri Space, tell the Cohnirri Space story, which basically ends in book 2. It really doesn't go to book 3. In terms of the novels, the story of Cassin's in book 2, and also in the book, that is, in the Cassin saga. The Cassin saga ends before 2499, and then it's the Benton saga. It's Arlene and her crew and all that. It's a different commander in that later story. He's retired after the second interaction with Char and Holt. Well, in this version of the timeline, we're assuming it's a different timeline than the books, and in this version, we've pretty much established that the character of Char, who's the oligarch bad guy dude, and Holt, they're done at the end of book 3, pretty much, or movie 3, book 1, and they should be done at the end of book 1 because that's when their other meeting later on, which was re-engineered from a story about Slayton's son, not just Alan Slayton, but Michael Slayton Jr. Michael Slayton and Michael Slayton Jr. He was going to go on and do this, meet the Witch King, the Dryden person, and do all this other stuff, and the Witch Lady, Witch Queen. Not the Witch King, that's Lord of the Rings. Witch Queen. And then there was going to be that. And then that was changed, I believe, in book 5. so that it was combined with the last Char story in book 5, the novel. And I don't necessarily want to do that last Char book story like that, because he's still around and he's still on the planet, and they just keep him around because he's that awesome as a bad guy. It's a bit like the Boba Fett stuff. Don't want to do that. Actually, this character is more interesting than Boba Fett, technically. Boba Fett was only on camera for 6 minutes in the Star Wars saga. And then the Book of Boba Fett doesn't count. I don't know what universe that was. Anyway, that's neither here nor there. But yeah, I wanted to make a story that you don't need to go on. You kind of do need to go on to book 2 and have elements of book 2. As for book 3 and 4 and 5 and 6 and 7, it would be 21 chapters. It would be insane. How about I don't know. How about if there's enough there, if they don't repeat themselves like they do with that Slayton Jr. story, the Exile story. We have characters that later on become more powerful and changed and stuff. We have the girl become Sam Pregak's wife becoming a powerful turncoat against Derek Cassins, the son of Thomas Cassins. I don't even think in this universe they have kids. This other universe, they don't have kids. They just wrote that out. So there's no Michael Slayton Jr. There's no Jr. They could, but why introduce their kids? That's just, that was one of the Mark Card things. They're like, introduce their kids. It works in Legacy because, and in Starship Locations, because you've established that the Starship Locations series took place 16 years after Chimera, and it lines up with Castro Riker. So Castro Riker is a friend of Tamara. Yeah. What's funny about that spin-off thing here is the character of DeVries in this is inspired by the character who is playing. I had mixed. I had confused it on purpose. I had mixed the Kestra action figure, Castro Riker, with the Tamara Locarno action figure. In real life, the Abby, the adult, one of the adult Abbies, and one of the adult Emmas, they were switched. So it was actually the other way around. That Tamara was the other one. She was that one. This one, when they introduced DeVries, it switched back, and she's like a Kestra figure, but she's actually the other one, the corrected one. That's kind of funny. And it's a Troy figure, but it's supposed to be one of the Abbies, the adult ones, the adult one. There's no kids in this at all. Also, it's kind of weird that in the end credits you list special guest appearance by 2 different Kate Folletts. See if anybody catches that. It's not an error. There are 2 of them. There are 2 Kate Folletts. Because there are 4 kitty keys. There are 2 Kate Folletts. There are 2. There's the one that was named for there was the one that was named that, and there was the one that was the COL name of someone else who became that in the COL cult. They're not really that. They had another name before that. So yeah, it's a different lady. It's hilarious that Ponce de Leon, the character who played Unicron, and the James Spader-like Hedon is in this, and that apparently Morton Roadkill is the bad guy, but he's under his real name in the credits instead. But yes, a lot of people are under their real name in the credits. But yes, they're all Kal Kat, of course. Yeah, there's no lady there, but they're inspired by them. As for Legacy, don't know what they're going on next, but I want to do some more Cohnirri Space after movie 3, and I don't want to do the whole thing because that would be ridiculous. It'd be 21 movies. I have to do that. But doing a few of them might be fun. I want to have cast and crew burnout and just keep doing it until they're still cool. So yeah. If you made certain events not happen, certain events the other books wouldn't happen. Like if you had the Dargrai attack when they come to Earth in book 2, if you have it so they don't destroy the Kaylee in book 2, and Perkak escapes, then that timeline doesn't happen like that. It prevents the other timeline from occurring, which would be fine. Yeah. So, and then he escapes, and then he goes out, and he's like, "Okay, we're gonna go and fight the bad guy." If the other ones don't actually encounter certain events, if Harlegan is stopped 10 years earlier by Cassins and crew and introducing the other ship going to the other planet, then yeah, that changes the whole thing. And we did build a Starship Discovery like the other ones, so we have that model. I don't want to use it. And introduce that ship. So yeah, it doesn't have to be the London or the Hadrian in this one. The reason it's not the London, it's called the Hadrian, which is the old name for London, is something as simple as, well, there's a TV show with it called The Expanse with the London, so we can't use it. Yeah. I think it's The Expanse, one of those. So we can't use it. It'd be like calling it the Enterprise. It'd be like, okay, they have a Rosanade in now too. But no, that's the ship in The Expanse. There was a Rosanade originally, but the name, one of our ships is the Darlevoire, which is a fun made-up French word. Sounds French. It's not a real word, the alien word. That's a ship from the story. Yeah, they go on to fly different ships in different universes 10 years, 15, 20 years later. And it's like, why don't they just fly the ships now and fly them in the current time period? And then they don't need to jump ahead. They could do that. You're writing your own series, you're kind of establishing, you don't need to do generations of the crew. It's more interesting to do the crew and then say, okay, this is what we've got up this series. This is what we're doing. If it goes a little different than the other ones. Yeah, it's kind of like the reverse of the Game of Thrones series, where George R.R. Martin didn't finish the last book, and they went on ahead and they ruined the last chapter of the series. It's more like, no, actually, in this version, we have all 7 books and access to them, and the scripts. We're just like, we don't necessarily want to do these other ones as this. They could be something else. They could be adapted as legacy episodes or something, if you think that might be fun. But yeah, some of the later ones are like, do we want? No, we definitely do not want to do Book 7, where the Space Devil Nephilim characters fight each other, and then Anderson shows up in his Distant Journeys, and she shows up, and she's basically Janeway Martha. It's my sister crossed with Janeway, and it's just Janeway. And let's just call her Janeway, just to clarify that. Voyager. And Voyager, basically, she becomes a god for some reason. Don't know why. And then she got a demigod, a Q, I guess. And then there's a Space Jesus. And we're not going to go there. No, that's... Space Jesus shows up and stops the aliens. Just like what was I doing? Apparently, Roberto Orci got wind of these stories when writing Prometheus, and thought, that's a great idea. Space Jesus stops the aliens from aliens. No, it's not. That's why they're only in book form. There's no series about that. And Ridley Scott was all like, don't do that. No, that isn't why the alien engineers stopped 2,000 years, whatever. That doesn't make sense. Why would they do that? No, don't do that. I like the way it's blocked as it is. It doesn't need to have a space deity thing. So this is kind of a behind-the-scenes thingy of what's next in the series. And I don't necessarily, I guess you'd include this in making of book 2, but it's kind of rambly. And it's behind the scenes, because book 2 hasn't started filming yet. So it's behind the scenes of, not book 2, but movie 3 hasn't begun filming yet. And it's like there'll probably be a lot less making of for that one. There's a lot of making of for this one. Because there were, yeah. So yeah, it necessarily need to burn out on it. There's other events that would be changed if they didn't want to destroy it. Yeah. Really, book 1 is kind of it, but there could be a book 2 just to fill things in. And maybe movie 4, maybe it does like the Legacy trilogy, and we say, okay, book 4, we're just going to go to the Dark planet and have elements of book 2 in there, but only the cool parts, and have them go to the Dark planet, fight the Dark, prevent them from blowing up Beth Cassin's ship, prevent them from being on trial because they get caught, and they don't know they're doing it, and stopping the other ship, and then in the 4th book we have it end with them about to contact the Tahdemis in the distant galaxy. Then they discover, the Tahdemis, they're not there, they're gone. Yeah, one of the commander guys comes back and goes, just throw in a line where he sent for the Tahdemis fleet of millions of warships, but apparently we found the fleet, but they're all dead, and they ate each other to survive because they died of old age because they couldn't reproduce. They were stupid. No, that should be the end of them. So, because we can't afford to film them, yes, and nor should we. We're not going to do. Orville took the aliens. They used them. The Mochlans. We can't do them. We can't do those guys. So they're the Mochlans. They're basically the Mochlans. Well, I can't do them. No. But strangely enough, we can do the Cooligan, who are kind of those robot guys. And we can do the Avis, too, apparently. We're okay with that. Yeah, they don't mind that. Steal our other stuff. And just so you know, there is no Orville season 4 in production. Anyway,